Hi. Welcome to the Chris Farley Show. I'm Chris Farley, and my guest tonight is one of the greatest musicians, rock musicians, I guess songwriter ever. God, that sounded stupid. God, I'm an idiot. I never know how to start these things.
You're doing great, Chris.
Really? No, I'm not. Anyway, I guess I didn't have to say who you were because, man, I mean, everyone knows who you are. You're
Tommy Tallarico.
Oh, it's great to be here.
You remember when?
Remember when Tommy said that other controllers were too expensive in his investor's pitch, where he showed that the price of controllers are $60 to $80?
So if you want to play with 2, 3, 4 people, okay, now you're going to have to spend another 60 to 70 or 80 bucks for those controllers.
Well, today, or just the other day on the EB Games webpage, which is GameStop for Canada, they announced the price of the Amico controller. And get this, the price of the Amico controller in Canadian dollars is $100. That's $10 more than the Nintendo Switch Pro controller. It is insanely expensive. So 100 Canadian is about 80 American dollars for one controller. That is the most expensive controller you can buy. Like, compared to the other 3 systems, it's more expensive than a Nintendo, a Sony, or a Microsoft controller. How about for fun we do a comparison between buying an Amico and also buying a Switch, and let's see what costs more if we want to have a full couch co-op experience with 4 people playing. So first, for the Amico, and we'll use Canadian dollars just to make it easier, based off the EB Games webpage. The Amico is $340 for the base console. To buy 2 extra controllers is $200 more. So you're at $540, and you end up with 4 total controllers and the 6 pack-in games, which are pretty cheap. And with the Switch, it's $400 for the console, and you can buy the third-party controllers, which I've shown before, for as low as $20, $25. So say $25. So if you comes with 2 Joy-Cons, you buy 2 extra controllers, you're at $440 before buying any games. So at this point, it's $100 cheaper than the Amico. And for, let's just say you want to buy a pack of games, Clubhouse 51, very popular title, which has similar games to the Amico games, is $50. So at roughly $500, you have a Switch with the 2 Joy-Cons and 2 extra controllers. The Amico, on the other hand, is $540 with the 6 pack-in games. So you're ahead $40 already, and even if you don't like using the Joy-Cons, you can buy a couple more of those third-party controllers, and the price would be identical. So Tommy's narrative where the other consoles are just so much more expensive is completely incorrect. The Amico is incredibly expensive. So the better value, and not to mention the Switch has thousands of games in its library. It has apps like YouTube and a whole lot better games. It's just, how can they even compete?
Plus the games, plus. I mean, it might cost you over $1,000 just to play a couple of good games with a couple of friends. Very expensive for consumers.
Now, inevitably, someone from the Amico side is going to complain and say that you can use your phone as a controller, and completely ignore the fact that you have to buy the phone in the first place. So it's a much higher initial cost than buying those third-party Nintendo controllers. And I won't say who exactly will complain, but I'll give you a hint. It's someone who's over 50 years old, overweight, has a beard, and does videos in front of a wall of games. So at that point, I've narrowed it down to about 15 different people. So that comparison, when they bring that up, it's irrelevant. It has nothing to do with this. So in the end, the Switch, once again, far better value than the Amico. So for the second part of this video, I want to talk about the controllers themselves and how it appears that the motion controls are not in a functional state. And the reason I say that is because in the E3 video that I went over, a lot of the camera angles they showed was either people playing with the controller like facing the camera so you can't see what's on the TV. The best one I can think of is when the girl's playing cornhole. They strategically placed it behind her so you can't even see the TV or her hand, and as she's doing the motion of throwing the beanbag, the camera pivots and you can't see her hand, and if you look close you can actually see she's not even using the Amico controller, she's just using her cell phone, and you have no idea if it's actually working on screen. So a lot of, I'm not sure if that's smoke and mirrors or trickery or whatnot, but a lot of questionable like decisions. Like if it's fully functioning, why wouldn't they just clearly show her hand playing the game? And a good example of that is back when the Nintendo Wii was announced, and when Reggie was demoing it and the others, they clearly showed, you know, him holding the Wiimote in his hand and moving his arm, and the actions correlating with his movements on the screen, mostly with, like, you know, Wii bowling or tennis. With the Amico, it just, you don't really see any of that, and even in that E3 video, a couple of other times they showed motion controls. So for like Farkle and a couple of the other games, they're using the cell phone app instead, which is really like, that doesn't make any sense. You're trying to push this, like they brag, or I wouldn't say brag, but they talk highly of their remote control or their Amico controller, but they're not using it. So it's just really bizarre. And I'm assuming they're not using it because it's not in a fully functional state, and they're just trying to cover it up. We've seen maybe a little bit of the tilt functionality working, but even still, at the E3 conference there, they had those kids tilting the controllers at the beginning of Evel Knievel, and I'm not sure about the game, how it's supposed to work, but the kid's, like, you know, putting his hand left and right, and rotating the controller, and nothing's happening on screen. And I'm not sure if it's supposed to, but either way, it's a confusing. It doesn't look good on the system. Like, I wouldn't show that part if it's not supposed to rotate the rocket, and if it is supposed to rotate the rocket, it's totally not doing it. So it's just really bizarre. I would think if the controller is fully working that they would be showing it, because that would be the big selling feature. And instead they keep showing like Tommy playing with the demos on the controllers themselves, which does nothing to sell the product. I'm going to guess that it's not working because they have their other issues with the, you know, the horrible lag. And every time the people who try to defend the Amigos, they always say, well, in Texas, people played it and everything was working perfectly. So we're supposed to take the word of, you know, Tommy's friends that it is working. You would think that 4 months out of release that they would show it working and show Tommy, like, he does all these podcasts and all these different, you know, small interviews. You would think he would load up a game, even something like Farkle, and just show it rolling the dice and then on the screen, but he doesn't. So it's pretty clear that something is up with the controllers. And I won't even bother going into the fact that in the E3 video they had using stock photos, which is just so lame. It's not that expensive to hire a photographer and to take some pictures. They could even use some of the staff's family showing, you know, sitting at the couch playing it, or they have the video of Hans's family doing it, so why not have photos also? It makes it look very amateur and just not professional at all. So what I don't get about why they added all these motion controls and LED lights, that's another thing they haven't shown off. Outside of Shark, it's the only game they've shown that the LED lights interact with the game. They have all these tacked on features, but they don't appear to be implementing them into any of their games. Like most of the games Tommy has shown is just him holding the controller sideways and using the disc pad and then the touchscreen to make the character, you know, jump or shoot. He's barely shown anything with, or almost hasn't shown anything with the LED lights or the motion controls. So you would think that if they're not going to be, you know, implementing this in all their games and making this a unique feature that's going to drive the system, why would he create these controllers that are so expensive. It would have been far more smart and cheaper to make your standard controller where they could keep the disc with the directional pad disc, and then just have 4 tactile buttons they can press in, and those controllers would cost them next to nothing to make, and then they can sell the console and the controllers at a much lower price. It just seems like a completely terrible business decision to throw all these gimmicks onto the controller, which then drives up the price to a point where it's more expensive than a Switch Pro controller. Right now, the Nintendo Switch controllers, the Pro controller is $90 only, so it's unbelievable that they're the most expensive controller compared to even the big three. And of course, Tommy's going to bring up the Elite controller, which is $180, but that's just a completely ridiculous comparison, because how many casual gamers go out and buy an Elite controller? That is the hardest of hardcore controllers for any console gamer.
I mean, there's even a controller out there, I swear to God, it's $179 just for one controller. But
now, to sum up this video, the controller is overpriced. It doesn't appear to be in a fully functional state. With only 3 or 4 months out before release date, they still are not showing the controller being used in real time. Things do not look good for the Intellivision Amico at this point. I'll be surprised even if it actually releases at all, because it's been 3 years and they still don't have a fully functional prototype. How much more time and how much more money do they have left to burn into getting this into production? Like, if it's going to take them 6 or 9 more months just to get the controller to work, can they push the release date over a year from now? Like, it does not look too good for them. Now, I'm sure they'll complain about this video, but the easiest way to silence myself or the other critics is just to show the actual controller working without any trickery in the camera. Like, it's a pretty simple thing to do. Just boot up the system, load up a game, and show it working. Show Cornhole working. It shouldn't take too much. It doesn't cost money. You just put it up on YouTube or wherever else. It'll get people excited. Worst case scenario, you made a promotional video to get people excited for Cornhole. So I don't think that's going to happen. More than likely, they're just going to complain, and somehow it'll be the Geek Getaway's fault, even though he has nothing to do with it. And they'll say that we need to trust the word of Tommy Tallarico, because that is more valid than visual proof or visual evidence that the controller is working. So we'll see. I'll continue making videos as this train wreck keeps going on, because I just can't help myself but watch this Gong Show. It's just far too entertaining. And stay tuned, and hopefully we'll get more videos about the media, see if the Ars Technica stuff picks up or not. And until then, leave more comments, even if they're hateful. I don't care. It's fun. And subscribe and stay tuned.
That was awesome.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, you remember when you went to Japan and